Hello and welcome to the Service-Based Business Society podcast. I am your host, Tiffany-Ann. On our weekly episodes, we will dig into everything you need to know about scaling your service-based business without losing sleep. With my experience in creating over 7 figures per month and a passion for marketing, finance, and automation, this show will provide tangible tips and techniques for scaling your business. Let's get started. Hey guys, today we are talking with Geoff Seow, the founder of MindAxis Life Coaching. Geoff is dedicated to helping unfulfilled millennials create an inspired vision for their future through overcoming self-doubt with his MindAxis Method. Geoff also has an extensive academic background in human biological sciences, neuroscience, and biotechnology. He combines his academic knowledge with his coaching experience to help his clients achieve the ultimate personal transformation. Geoff is so knowledgeable and passionate and brings a sciencey side to the discussion that honestly is very thought-provoking. So, welcome to the show, Geoff. Hey, Geoff, thanks so much for joining. I am so glad to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tiffany. It's awesome to be on the podcast.
Fantastic. You know, I was checking out some of your content and there were a few things that jumped off the page at me that I was like, we absolutely need to dive into some of these things. And so tell me a little bit, just give me kind of the quick overview of who you are and who you serve.
Right, so I'm the founder of MindAxis Life Coaching. I help unfulfilled millennials get clear on their life vision, what they want to do, help them overcome any obstacles or fears that stand in their way, and basically help them plan a strategy that actually achieve it with accountability.
Yes. And this, I was like, absolutely, this is fantastic. So tell me, when did you realize you wanted to start focusing on millennials?
It was when at the very beginning of my coaching, the thing that they don't tell you is that you can't coach everyone. So that should be common sense, but I had not kind of realized that at the time. So as I began to work through my coaching, I began to understand that my coaching should be aligned to things that I actually resonate with, right? Not just everything in general, but the path that I have walked. So me being a millennial myself, I'm able to understand the challenges of millennials. So I've created my own course and I've created everything that I do around my own understanding, compiled with my life coaching certifications and my academic background in human neuroscience, biotech, psychology, put all of it together. So I now understand exactly who I help and how I help them reach the result they want.
That's incredible. I think the word millennial comes with such a negative connotation. People don't, it's, I think it's almost used against people in some instance. Oh, you're a millennial, or, oh yeah, it makes sense, or, oh, gotta learn how to lead the millennials. I love the focus on clarity, focus, and whatnot. So when you developed your coaching program and whatnot, was that right at the start of your journey, or you waited and you yourself had to focus and learn your way?
No, it was at the very start. So
Okay.
there was no way I was going to go into coaching without having some kind of spine to be able to deliver, right? Like I was never about the idea of coaching as in like, oh, you can call me for an hour and then we'll catch up and we'll work through it. No, I always had a definable target for what I knew people could reach, which is whether achieving their goals, overcoming their fears, getting clear on where they wanted to take their path, all this kind of stuff. These are outcomes. And me as an outcome focused person, I understood that has to be where the program takes you,
Yes, absolutely. The objectives, we refer to them in our agency and in business as objectives, and being super clear on the objective. Because if you're not clear on where you're trying to get to, trying to define the best way to get there becomes this, very involved process of overthinking, because you're missing out on the main key piece of where are you trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to understand where you're headed. And once you understand the endpoint, you can strategize towards it.
Yes. So one of the things I was noticing about in your content that you were talking about was helping people find their vision and establish that. And so can you kind of walk me through what that can look like when someone's working with you?
Right, so there's a major exercise that we perform, which is called gazing all the way to the end, which is really getting clear on what you want your life to look like at the end. Right, I'm not talking about 10 years, 20 years. I'm talking about at the very end when you're old and you're looking back. And you know how they always say you want to live without regrets? I firmly believe that's very important because, living with regrets just really shows that you haven't taken life to its fullest, right? So if you look all the way to the end, what is it that you would like to say you have done? And then go and do it. You know what I mean? Make it happen. And that's the plan. But you've got to understand exactly what it is that you want first. Because we only get to live once, and that's very important to really internalize because we don't get ultimate redos. There are only a certain amount of times we can press the reset button.
Yes, absolutely. And and so do you find that some people struggle with that concept and that exercise more than others?
No, everyone I've taken through that concept has really been able to visualize exactly what it is that they want. See, everyone knows what they want out of life, but it's whether they're able to bring it to the fore. Life is full of distractions. You got work, you have commitments, family, all this sort of stuff, and it's not in the forefront of your mind. So when someone walks you through it, like in my coaching program, it's already there. I'm just unearthing it, making it clear in the front of their mind again.
Right, right. Okay. So once you've figured out exactly where you want to be at the end, it's a process of kind of reverse engineering
Hmm,
back to where you are now and working
absolutely.
through that process. Okay. Yeah. And so when someone is setting these objectives and whatnot, do you find that there's also a personal journey piece that really is comprised of some of that, even though it's related to business and how it all ties together? When the life coaching and the business side coaching, how do you create that distinction or boundary, or do you? Or do you when you're coaching and teaching, do you try and keep it separate? Do you bring it all together and work on it as one unified piece?
No, they're completely separate because life coaching itself is a business, but when I coach, that side of it is not integrated. Coaching is a one-to-one experience with another person or with a group, right? It's where you're literally providing insights to help people change their lives. So no, like the business side is separate. That's in the background that obviously needs to happen for you to survive in this world, right? But the coaching itself is focused entirely on the client. There's no distractions.
Okay. Okay. And so when you're working through some of these pieces, what would you say have been some of the biggest kind of revelations that some of, what who you would consider some of the biggest success stories? What have they experienced or what have they worked through that helped them become that much more successful or that much have a deeper understanding?
It would definitely be their fears. It would be overcoming their fears, overcoming their limiting beliefs, but first of all, getting clear on what it is. A lot of the time, most of the people I work with have bad self sabotage patterns, right? So I say bad, but not really. It's like self sabotage to a degree where they want something, but the more they want it, the more they push away from it purely because they haven't been able to understand what makes their neurology tick. So, how does their psychology drive their decisions? And the decisions you make consciously create your reality. But if you're not conscious of your decisions, that's not helping you out at all. And a lot of the time, our decisions are underpinned by our limiting beliefs of what we think we can do in life. Our fear is based on past experiences. And we don't necessarily project it consciously into the future, but it's there influencing what we do and how we do it. And that's how we end up being in a loop. And that's why a lot of people get stuck in addiction, alcoholism, they get stuck in their jobs that they hate. They get stuck in different situations that are not ideal because they haven't realized exactly why they keep repeating the same cycle.
Right. That makes so much sense. I think that, millennials and everyone really struggles
Mm.
with this limiting belief piece and even the most successful people who end up, you often read about it later in memoirs or, podcast episodes like this where people really dive in and share that authentic piece and that limiting belief piece um, is so key to so many people's journeys. And what do you think creates that? Like, where does that originally stem from? Because it's such a widespread problem.
Sorry, just need a drink there.
No problem.
What makes it such a widespread problem is the fact that humanity itself is quite complex. Our childhoods are normally quite chaotic, particularly from a child's mind from the age of birth to 7 years old. We act as a sponge. We basically consume information, and we attach emotions to certain events. So if you look at the neuroscience that underpins it, it's attaching a neurotoxin to a memory, which creates a negative sensation whenever we relive that same experience. So therefore, when during these 7 years, whether things are good or bad, what happens is we extrapolate that into the future, and that's where core limiting beliefs are formed. And I'm not saying we have to go all the way back and isolate a memory. If you can, it helps, because that normally unblocks everything because you can rationalize it. But if you can't, then you've got to understand whether that narrative you're telling yourself is the truth or if it's fiction based on something you believed when you were a lot younger, because the past does not equal the future. So they're very big distinctions, but that's where they form.
Right. Okay. That it's almost a bit frightening when you think it goes back that far, and that's
Mm.
a lot of baggage to unpackage.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So I was a long time. I can't even. I At this moment I can't even think of the event I was at. But I remember being at a personal development conference, and someone was saying you can have two people that have experienced the exact same hardship. Maybe they've gone through life. It's been a struggle, and one person can become super successful, and I can say, what inspired you to make these life choices, or what inspired, how did you get here? And someone can say, well, my past really, helped shape my future. It inspired me. And then you can have someone else who can have the exact same experience, and they can, be having a tougher time, and someone can say, how did your life become this? You can say, well, my past was really, it was really tough. And so two people both going through the same situation and both ultimately ending up with opposite outcomes. And so how does that tie in to what you were just talking about, and kind of these pieces? Ha- Yeah, can you elaborate on how those that would tie in with what you were just saying?
Well, there's a couple of factors that underpin what we end up doing with our lives with our conscious psychology. It is one, our genetics play a big factor, but two, also our childhood psychology. When you combine these two, it comes back to the analogy of the glass half full or the glass half empty. Depends on how you see the world, but you can only see the world in which you've been conditioned. Like, for example, while there's two different people, like let's that example, and exactly that one, it's to do with alcoholism, right? So there's two kids and they both see their father as an alcoholic. One sees the father as an inspiration to not be an alcoholic, and the other becomes a ravaging alcoholic. And what makes all the difference? Well, it's not just choice, because if we could choose, we obviously wouldn't pick a pathway that has negative consequences. But it depends on how we cope, because the way in which we cope with hardship in our lives, there's a multivariate factor. Like for me, for many years, I used to be a drug addict in my past, right? I use it as a coping mechanism. But then when I flipped the story, when I flipped the script in my mind, I realized that my past and what happened to me in my past should inspire me so to help other people not go through the same. So it comes down to the story we tell ourselves as a coping mechanism. If you tell yourself that your life has been hard, full of difficulty and strife, and you want to get away from it because it's bad and everyone else should feel your pain, then you're going to cope with some other substance. But if you use it as an inspiration, saying, okay, my past is full of pain, negativity, anger, maybe I can use this to help other people, provide a positive impact, or at the very least, not be a detriment to other people. That's the choice we make based on the story we tell ourselves.
Yes. That's very powerful. Very powerful. Um, when you talk about who you're surrounding yourself with and your influence, on the people around you, there's obviously that influence coming back in. And so sometimes we can choose who is in our circle, and the energy and the positivity and whatnot. And sometimes we I mean, I guess we always could, but sometimes we have family that may or may not be super supportive. And I would say a lot of times as people, in an entrepreneurial journey, sometimes they have people, maybe a partner, a parent, a best friend even, that cannot understand or see the vision. And so they're struggling with someone saying, don't be silly, or, that's crazy. Why are you doing that? And to someone who's already struggling a little bit with their own self-doubt, that can be really
Mm.
difficult to work through. Um, do you have some advice or suggestions for people experiencing that?
Yeah, so that's something that comes up a lot, and for me, I've been an entrepreneur multiple times as well, and this coaching means a lot to me. It's my favorite one that I've ever done. I love it, and throughout all the time, people have always told me different pieces of advice: go get a job, do something safe, go do this, go do that, finish uni before you open up a business, all this kind of stuff. And I have listened in the past, but there comes to a point where you've got to realize that what people are telling you is not necessarily a reflection of what you are on the inside. You've got to really understand that everyone is different based on their upbringing, based on the information they understand. So if somebody else has spent their entire life being conditioned to act along a certain pathway, which involves a lot of safety and a lot of risk, then of course they're only going to be able to give you the information that works best for them. You've got to do what works best for you, because we all have different attributes. And if you look at human nature, it's a beautiful, a beautiful picture of different things and so many different ideas and variation. You can't just look at someone else's version of reality and extrapolate that on yourself. You have to be able to pick and choose, and that requires willpower and that requires intention. And if you don't have confidence or belief in yourself, it's hard to make anything happen, because you're going to let everyone push you around. So you don't have to listen to everyone, but there's always something to learn from everyone. It just depends whether you incorporate it.
Right. Right. I mean, that's a very interesting concept. There is so much to learn from each person, but really deciding which parts of that, listening
Yeah.
and hearing, but not necessarily implementing.
You got to make up your own mind.
Right. Right. Now, when we look at those who are around us and those, influences on positivity and sometimes you have people in your life that really are just super negative about what you're doing. Do you feel like there's a way to manage that relationship and protect the confidence and protect the positivity in your life? Or do you find that that's something that, to make that choice for yourself, you really need to exclude some of that from your life?
We don't have to exclude anyone. I don't think that there's any gain to be had from cutting people off entirely, because people are people and they have their own issues to work through. You can't take it personally, right? That's the first rule of business. Don't take it personally, and you know that too. But
Yes.
the next thing about that is that if somebody's really bringing you down with their energy, just reduce the amount of time you spend around them. You don't have to give your energy to each and every single person that requests it. You can give your energy to those that can use your energy positively, and then it's a good cycle of exchange. But you don't have to let other people bring you down. You can keep them in your life, see them maybe once every couple of months, right? Still maintain that bond, but you don't have to be there all the time sucking that up, because you deserve better. That's where you got to make up your mind. Majority of life is making up your mind. Who do you want to be? How do you want to do it? If you don't know, it's time to figure it out, because if you don't, you're always going to be in a cycle. Like inside our internal world is the most important thing we could ever develop.
Yes, and the mindset piece is so key as you head out into any kind of entrepreneurial journey. And that, to kind of reflect back on one of these pieces you say and say, don't take it personally. It's when your business is, I'm sure, because you've built your course and you are so passionate about your business. I'm sure you understand that. I mean, when you're putting yourself into your business, really, and that's so common in any kind of service-based business or entrepreneur type situation, that when you're putting yourself out there, it's tough, because often it comes, especially off at the beginning, with some form of rejection. You're the sales, you're often in a sales piece, you're in a customer fulfillment piece, you're in a creation design piece. And so there comes this point where protecting that confidence and continuing on that journey and believing in yourself when sometimes no one else sees the vision yet.
Well, there's no reason for anyone else to see your vision apart from you, because it's your vision. It's you got to protect it. That's for you. No one else can see what you can see in your mind. But secondly, rejection. Yeah, I got to admit, like, I'm not perfect. Rejection has hurt me a lot when I first started the business, and even in the past, when I was in university, I used to work as a salesman. I used to be the worst salesman. I used to get rejected constantly, like literally. I would say hello to people and they tell me to leave them alone. I've been rejected in jobs. I've been rejected by girls. I spent most of my life being rejected a lot, and I have looked at it, and for a lot of the time, that created a limiting belief that I was never good enough. So I'd always sabotage and kind of pull back or give up, because I never thought I was good enough to do anything. A lot has changed for me in the past couple of years. And the key to getting over rejection is to realize that rejection is not real, because no one's rejecting you. They're just rejecting the idea of what you're trying to give them. So, for example, if you're trying to sell something and they reject you, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting the product. If a girl rejects you, that might just be because they reject the idea of being with you in a future scenario. But it's not you per se. You can always learn. There's always trends. And that rejection is a learning experience, because you can look at those trends to improve certain areas that you may not have seen before. So if somebody rejects you for the way you're talking, maybe you're arrogant. Maybe you need to moderate the way in which you come across to other people, be more sociable. Maybe people reject you based on, how you express yourself to the world. Maybe you're not looking after your hygiene standards. There are many different ways to look at those are examples only, but there's always something to be learned from rejection. And the more you get rejected, the more you realize it doesn't matter. Because for the amount of people that will reject you, there will be someone who will need you. And then that's, well, as you know, that's business, right? Not everyone's going to love what you do or your product.
Yes. I was having a conversation actually with a client this morning, and we were talking about how, you know, you have to be willing to put yourself out there enough that some people will absolutely love you because they will know that you are for them. But in turn, that means that some people will know you are not for them, and that's okay. And trying to be, it almost comes back to your initial comment about coaching everyone. It really comes down to being able to choose who you're going to benefit the most, who your service serves the most. And often when people are starting out, they say, oh, I don't want to exclude anyone. I need to make the money. I need to make the sales. And so, yes, there's this balance of increasing revenue and growing your business. But there also comes the point where it's what are you working on developing? Where are you investing your energy in growing your business? And as your business grows, hopefully, you get to the point where more and more of the ideal audience. But it's really through good messaging and good marketing that transformation occurs because people understand, hey, this person is exactly what I've been looking for, or this service is exactly what I need. And for every one person that says, this is exactly what I'm looking for, there may be someone that says, oh, that's not for me. And that's okay.
It's completely fine. And it's one of the reasons why, for everything in my business, like literally everything that you can see, my website, my social medias, is completely handcrafted by me. Because with coaching is very personal. And I understood this from the beginning because I wouldn't want to be coached by just anyone. I want to be coached by someone who resonates with me. So everything I do is completely handmade because that means that I'm completely authentic. There is no one else involved. The authenticity all comes from me. It comes exactly from my mind, and the people that resonate with my message. And that's why it's completely authentic and it's organic, because I know that you can't just buy your way into coaching. Coaching is a one-to-one transformation. It's very important.
Yes. And it's interesting as you say that because you're really coaching is so specific. And so you have defined and said, hey, this authentic messaging piece is super important for my business. So is there an area where a different type of business would maybe go all in that as a coach, you say that's not necessarily an area that I want to focus on? That's something that maybe wouldn't be authentic to my brand or my message?
To me or to any other coach?
To you specifically.
Um, I probably couldn't coach children. I think that would be very difficult. I know there are some people that coach children. I don't think I could. Not because I don't get along well with children, but just because like that you need a very specific type of mindset. It's got to be based upon the transformation that you've been through. Okay, so like if you've gone through a certain hardship and you can resonate with other people, because your scenario is not completely unique to you. There's 7 billion people on this planet, and the beauty about that is that there is at least one or two other people going through the same shit. And the cool thing about that is that those are people that you can help. So that's where you are authentic with your what you do with your brand, right? But then if I say, for example, I tried to market towards children, I don't know what children like. I don't know what they do or their conflicts or their struggles. It would be hard. So yeah, I would only be able to understand and help people that I resonate with really at the same time.
Right. Right. So when you're looking, one of the keywords that I picked out of your content that really kind of resonated for me was inner resistance. And how do you define inner resistance?
Well, inner resistance is something that is stopping you from achieving what you want. It's like, when you see a job that you really like, okay, and you want to apply for that job. But then you're like, I'm not good enough. I don't have enough experience. I don't feel like I'm worthy of this. And then you just get rid of it and you go find another one. Or say you're about to post a piece of content and you're like, wow, this is a really good piece of content, but I'm afraid of being judged, or maybe this is too much for my audience. So you click delete. That is inner resistance because you're avoiding something that could potentially harm you or cancel you in a way, but you know that if you could do it, there could be potential rewards, and you choose the lesser.
Right. So in that kind of risk versus reward analysis, you're kind of overestimating the risk
Mm.
and just shying away rather than leaning in.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
I think that the unfortunately the this the lean in versus kind of shy away is it's this inner battle, and it comes almost to like this this cycle of overthinking things. And so to speak to a business piece specifically, it's we reflect back and always say, look at the data. The data helps tell the story. And when you're relying completely on, intuition and I think it's going better, but you don't have the data or the numbers to say it is going better or it is growing, and it is growing by the objective is to be at X by the end of the year. And here we are on path. And so what types of mindset pieces in addition to that would you say are important? So, we definitely talk about the data and how having the appropriate information can help you with the confidence and help you to make those decisions and feel more confident because you have it's the data is almost backing you up saying, yeah, you're right. You got this. So what else from a mindset perspective would you recommend?
Right. Well, so data shows trends, right? We're always looking to observe analytics and understand that. But data can't give you confidence. I mean, data can show you your business is growing, but that can't change what's on the inside because it's numbers. They're not real interactions. They're numbers that have correlations, and we look for linear trends, right? And therefore, that's our understanding of something that's completely separate. Because confidence itself and self belief in yourself cannot be tied to an algorithm. It just can't be, because that's not an accurate representation of people. For example, if we look at the algorithm and we say a majority of our audience is from the USA, then that's going to make us feel like we have to target only people in the USA. But maybe the people that want our service the most are in Europe. But we don't target them because the numbers are showing us a certain thing. But have you heard of something called the dark funnel before? So the dark funnel is basically, like the marketing funnel, obviously, right? So the
Yes.
opposite of that, the dark funnel is the exact same but reverse engineered with human interactions. So, for example, somebody screenshotting your post and sharing it, somebody telling a friend about what they learned from you. These are things called the dark funnel that happen beyond the realm of numbers because they involve human interactions, they involve humanity. So if you only look at numbers to make yourself feel confident, that's not an accurate representation of your impacts. An accurate representation of your impact is how much other people are gaining from you value and inspiration and being able to use your service to give themselves leverage. It's like teaching a man how to fish, right? So
Hmm.
you cannot tie internal worth to numbers. You cannot tie internal worth to trends because they are not real. But you can tie internal worth to the strength of your relationships and the growth of your dark funnel, which is human interactions beyond the scope of what you can view.
Right. Okay. I don't disagree with that. I don't, but I do think that a lot of times in business you have to make a decision of we're either going to go left or we're going to go right. And so a lot of energy or time could be spent, well, we could go left and the pros are this and the cons are here and it could be this and it could turn into that, or we could go right and in turn we could have all of these pros and cons. And a lot of times that the energy spent almost with this personal debate of left or right, and what if I get it wrong, and this kind of cycle of overthinking these decisions. And so when you have the appropriate information, so the data to say, well, if using your kind of marketing and funnel example, if we're saying, well, if we're going to go left, now we have the data to say that, our conversion rate is X and, our traffic is this, and we have all of these facts. It will provide some information that's going to help guide the way and say, realistically, your cost of acquisition to go left is this, your cost of acquisition to go right is this. And so you have more confidence. It's no longer just, I think it might be left or I think it might be right. When you have the data, it helps you to make an informed decision.
I agree with that. I definitely agree. I used to be a neuroscientist. So for my thesis in particular, I spent a whole year doing a project collecting data and writing trends. And I basically used that to calculate and write a thesis. So I spent most of my academic life looking at data. And the one thing I learned
Right.
about data is you can have so much data that shows you a trend, and when you put it into action, it does nothing. So that's the right. A lot of
Yes.
the time, a lot of the research we've done has proven nothing because we have so many trends that look perfect when we experiment and we collect it, and then we actually try it out, and it has no observable effect. Now, I'm not to say that business is the same. Business is a little bit different. The numbers help can sway your decision. But there is something about decision making that I really value for myself. I don't take longer than 5 minutes to make a decision for pretty much everything. There are some things that are the exception, but the majority is 5 minutes. Any longer than that, and I'm wasting my time that I can invest towards other things. To to
Interesting.
create a quick decision, I already have an idea of where I need to go because I'm always taking in information, right? So my brain is continuously absorbing information, and there is a trend line that's occurring within already, and I'm forming an unbiased opinion based on things that I'm viewing and observations that I view. And then I try to make a decision within 5 minutes purely because if you spend forever looking at this and rationalizing, rationalization and over rationalization is where we can become biased. And as you know in science, being biased means that you have inaccurate results. You want to be unbiased and look at it for what it is. The more you rationalize, the more you're going to bias and the more you're going to skew your data, and then you could create a consequence that might not be the one you want. So therefore, you've got to be okay with the consequence that happens. That's life. You've got to be okay with consequence, but you've got to be able to take the risk first. And if you spend all your time over rationalizing, you're not going to take the risk, or you will take the risk that is lesser, but with the lesser reward. It's all a balance, really. It just depends how you want to do it.
Very interesting. 5 minutes. So all life decisions, 5 minutes?
Almost, almost. There are a few that are
Interesting.
different like that. There are a few that are different, like interpersonal stuff, or like really grand
Yeah.
decisions in my life. No, that's a little bit longer. But most of the time, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. I can't waste more time than that. I do stuff, you know.
I agree. Does it when it's like come time, my most difficult thing is like, where are we going to go for lunch? This is a decision that I don't know. Decisiveness when it comes to food is interesting. My most dreaded thing, going to go out for lunch with a friend, and it's like, where do you want to go? Oh my goodness, the amount of time that could be wasted on something so trivial. And but you get into these. It's almost once you're in this cycle of overthinking a decision that it becomes a problem. And to bring that back to business and not think, the funny lunch analogy, but we've all been there where it's something that in you almost are like frustrated with yourself that something could be so simple. You're like, this is simple. Why am but you get into this overthinking cycle and you just struggle to get out. So to frame a situation and say, I'm going to make this decision within 5 minutes. Very interesting.
Well, because we tend to overcomplicate. Like a lot of the things in life do not need to be overcomplicated, but the reason we overcomplicate is because of intelligence. Intellect requires us to overcomplicate. For example, if you look at a dog and you look at its life on a daily basis, it gets up, it eats, it does its business, it goes for a walk, and it does nothing else, and it's completely the happiest animal on the planet. Humans, on the other hand, spend most of their time thinking and over rationalizing and are some of the most miserable animals on the planet. There is a correlation between this. I'm not saying thinking is bad. I'm a thinker too. I love thinking about existentiality, which is why I'm able to communicate with you like this. But in my thoughts and in my deep dives into the world and in my own mind, I've understood that over rationalization with logic takes away from the enjoyment of any experience. But overindulgence as well in an experience means that you lose rationalization and you have a problem making any kind of conclusive action. So you've got to have a balance. And the only reason I learned about this is because I looked at how many decisions a human makes in a day. We make like close to, I think, 1,000, like from memory. There's a lot of decisions we make, maybe even more than that. And every decision you make takes a bit of mental energy. So if you imagine your mental reservoir as being about this big, every single time you make a decision, you're decreasing your reservoir. So if you continuously struggle to make decisions, say like in the example of lunch, then later on you're going to struggle to make more important decisions related to your business or your personal life. So you can't be wasting time like that. You've got to really get clear on this, and save your mental reservoir for things that require energy. Like for me, it's my coaching or doing a podcast and talking to you like this. I can only communicate with clarity if I don't waste time thinking about things that take away my mental reservoir.
Right. It's an interest, it's a interesting way to frame it. I know I've mentioned, we've chatted on the podcast a few times about Steve Jobs and wearing the same sweater every day and removing that decision
Yeah.
from his day. And so as you're chatting about that, I think, like that it's always a different way, and you explain it so well and so clearly. I sometimes people snicker like, why would you wear the same sweater? But he just did not want to waste any of that reservoir on that decision and just solve that once and for all. Buy all the same sweater fixed.
And that's me the same too. I really don't buy clothes. I just use the same ones, and it doesn't take me long to choose. Because that's something I used to struggle with a lot as a younger man. I used to love all the fashion and stuff. I used to really be into it. Like the nice Gucci and all this sort of stuff. It's a couple of years ago, mind you, and I wasted so much time and effort trying to be someone that I wasn't. It doesn't matter what. It's not the clothes that make the man. That's the saying.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. So if you had one piece of advice for a service-based business owner that they could implement today that would create impact tomorrow, what would that be?
Get really clear on why you're doing it, and get really clear on the type of people that you're going to serve, especially since it's a service. Your ultimate goal needs to be to serve. While there are obviously profit and gross margins and things like that which you need to take into account, the underpinning of your business, you've got to get really clear on the fact that the ultimate number one priority is your client or your customer. If they are not happy, or if they do not see value in your product, you do not have a business, you have a hobby. There are many different things to that. Okay, so get really clear on who you serve, why you serve them, and do everything you can to make sure that they get the best value in whatever you do. Don't skimp, like, on Facebook, you see those ads where they're like, oh, download this book, you download the book, and it is like a 3-page book with like just like the most ridiculous checklist, and you're like, wow, this guy totally ripped me off and stole my email address. Don't do that. Give as much as possible. I give away a free book. I wrote a book, here, you can have it free. That give as much as you can, and always look after your customer. That's number one.
And that is such a valuable statement. And it's I was working on some automation with someone recently, and you know, created some massive impact. She has a huge following on TikTok. We started repurposing some content, putting it on other platforms. And it was like, wow, she's like, I can't believe this is working. And she goes, everyone needs this automation. And I said, okay, I love automation. And so I will always advocate for the fact that everyone should have automation. However, I said the reason that this is working is because you have good content. And automating bad content just means you have more bad content. Automating good content is why you're seeing the benefit. Because she a little bit got into this, well, I should have been doing this sooner. And sure, we can always, look back and say we could have done something sooner. But it comes down to, if the customer doesn't see value in what you're doing, the content isn't good. The book is the 3-page brutal checklist that we have all downloaded and felt ripped off on. It's without those pieces, it's not a business, it's not sustainable, and it will not create that repeatable, predictable revenue that really helps a business grow.
That 3-page checklist actually comes from yesterday, Tiffany. I was on Facebook and I saw this really cool ad for the Sunday plan your week, really get your week going. I was like, I could use this. So I go and download it. I was actually eagerly waiting for it. I was like, oh, when is it going to come? I just want to get this. I want to read this book. I get it. And it's literally like a page with all the services. And I look at the checklist. It's one page with 4 text boxes, 4 blank text boxes. And it said goal number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And then on the bottom page, it was like book a call. And I was literally just livid. I was like, are you serious? Like, I wasted 10 minutes waiting for that. I was so excited to get this. I really was. I was like, it was so well marketed. And I was just like, I was fuming.
You can market to people and they will, you will give your email address, and good marketing there's is not to be underestimated. But at the end of the day, especially in a business where you need like a repeat customer, where you're trying to provide a service later on, it's without the value, without actually being able to deliver, you really aren't much further ahead, other than you've crafted a fantastic marketing campaign.
Yeah, great ROI, but no engagement. Or no, like, what's it called? No closing of the deal.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, maybe they need to go back and have a look and say, well, maybe we should do more marketing and less of the checklist building. So if people want to dive into this, they want to work with you on some of these pieces that we've talked about today, Geoff, where can they do that?
They can find me on social media. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook at MindAxis, so AXIS, Life Coaching. And then at LinkedIn, you can find me at my name, Geoff Seow, Geoff with a G. Or you can look at my website, which is mindaxislifecoaching.com.au. And I've got heaps of stuff. I've got free books, lots of podcasts. I've got a webinar you can watch for free as well. Just like content as well. I've got plenty of good stuff. So come check it out and have a chat. I'm always open to it.
Fantastic. Yes. Yes. I highly recommend, just even a quick browse on Instagram really shows that you are bringing the value. There's tons of value bombs there. Well, thank you so much for joining today, Geoff. I really appreciate you taking the time and, sharing your message with the listeners. It truly is such a critical piece to every business owner's journey and getting clear on where you are and where you're going and building the plan out. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Tiffany. You've been great. So it's been awesome to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Well, we are all out of time for today. If you guys have not joined the Service-Based Business Society Facebook community, make sure you head on over to Facebook and we can continue the conversation. Be sure to also follow the show by going to any podcast app and searching Service-Based Business Society. Click subscribe, click the 5th star, and leave us a written review. Have a great week, and we will see you soon.